The Narcissist and the Karpman drama triangle. So, you have just gone through the battle of your life trying to get answers from your narc ex and the new knight in shining armor, let's call him what he really is, a narcissistic weasel, has run interference and is protecting the narcissist ex from any contact with you at all. The end of the relationship came suddenly with a physical attack and vicious threats and a sudden loss of your ex as the mask slipped off totally and she suddenly turned into someone you never met before. Yes, there were issues that needed to be discussed and answers that deserved to be given and some closure was needed. Things had to be sorted out. Anyone with the bare minimum of respect for a person they said they loved and intended to spend the rest of their life with owed the ex-partner at least that much. But the weasel, who may well have been the catalyst for the breakup in the first place, was making sure there would be no equitable resolution by enabling the situation to be fully no contact and enabling and aggravating the demonization of someone he never met before, someone he never knew. Yes, think of a deluded fool who would judge another human being he had never met simply by the disclosure of an unstable woman in distress. Oh yes, the narc's world did blow up unexpectedly this time along with the person she was discarding. This wasn't expected by the narcissist at all, and the shock of actually being a victim of her own duplicity shook the narcissist to her core. No, she was never supposed to have any repercussions from her own treacherous acts, but this time it all caught up with her. Make no mistake though, this just meant the narc had a new battle. Her final phone conversation with me was filled with one threat after another, and my concern was for her and I said, please don't hurt yourself. Her response: she was on a mission to destroy me and no, she wasn't going to harm herself, my total destruction was her reason for being alive, she was going to make sure I suffered. Yes, her new battle was to make sure that her ex-partner suffered and had at least twice as much pain as she had. So the weasel was the perfect tool for her to achieve that goal as well as provide her with comfort. In a sense, this was a match made in hell. The female narc on a mission to burn down her previous partner and the manipulative deluded weasel narcissist male with an inferiority complex that couldn't resist the urge to vanquish another man and prove his superiority. Finally he could live out his fantasy delusion of being a victorious warrior. Yes, stealing another person's relationship and being a victor was the ultimate mind candy for this clown, and his years of wanting to be a victor over another man were finally being lived out in real life. Yes, the weasel thought himself a knight and the female narc played the role of the damsel in distress to a T. So you are trying to have important conversations and resolve some major issues with your ex-partner. Trying to make sense of things. Trying to get answers. None will ever be coming. Instead you are faced with triangulation as the new couple flaunts their emotionally intimate relationship right in front of you and attempts to drive you crazy with the narc ex putting up multiple sham posts and starting multiple Instagram accounts that they think they are gaslighting you with. The narcissist male weasel's account is the source of one threat after another and the ex backs him up as each post is within seconds liked by the female ex and vice versa. Yes, this relationship's emotional intimacy plays itself out right in front of you on multiple posts each day. The Christmas and New Year's posts brought you to your knees. The female narc and the weasel literally collaborate with each other for hours each day, keeping in close contact and synchronizing everything. You have no option but to communicate through your Instagram account, and the two-way conversations between you and the narc male weasel go on for 4 to 6 weeks. There is no contact between you and the narc ex at all. Yes, you and the narc weasel boyfriend are engaging in psychological warfare with the narc weasel making threats one after another and insults as well. You try to keep things positive on your site and reach your ex as well as refute the atheistic rants and raves of the weasel narc and of course the threats of doing violence and things that will end him up in jail. Finally, trying to put an end to things, you tell the weasel, "You have won. Be happy with your achievement. Now stop the threats." Well, the weasel continues to gloat. Another warning is given. Bear in mind these are all simply posts on my site and posts on his. I simply ignore the weasel's site for a week or two and then in an effort to block this account I unfortunately have to view it. Well, the post that stares me in the face is this proverb: fear only two, God and the man who has no fear of God. Well, that was a take on my biblical passages that I had posted on my site. I then made this comment directly on the post: "Fear this, a man who believes in God and has no fear of you. It's time for you to back up your threats." So what happens next? Well, within 20 minutes the narcissist X shows up at my doorstep and engages in our final conversation and contact together, and that brings us to the subject of this video, the Karpman drama triangle. In short, the Karpman drama triangle is the dynamic between three people playing three roles, that of victim, persecutor, and savior. How does this apply to the narcissist? Well, the narc unwittingly is always caught up in this triangle and seamlessly switches from one role to the next. Let's get back to that final meeting, since it only became clearer to me this very day what was going on. So the narcissist walks into my place of business calm, cool and collected, and says she only has a few minutes to talk. She thinks she has shocked me by coming in. Why? It goes back to those Instagram accounts of hers. I will spare the details of the gaslighting she did on her site and the bizarre self-contradictory posts that she made. In short, she was attempting to get me to believe she was moving to another state. The posts on that site were a clear display of the instability and mental illness she was suffering from. Somehow she actually thought that I believed she had moved out of state. So when she walked into my business, she thought she had shocked me. She then proceeds to tell me that she hasn't been on Instagram for 3 months and a friend told her about my Instagram site. No, she knew nothing about anything, and then proceeds to discuss some of the posts I had made. I then show her on my phone how Instagram links your contacts to an Instagram page, and she proceeds with her lying without skipping a beat. I show her more contradictory evidence. Printouts of the threatening Instagram posts that she had made. Yes, that advice was given me by the police, and a copy of those printouts was added to my police report. I will be kind and not mention the extent of those threats. Just to be clear, I did give the narc fair warning to stop the threats or I would file a report with the police. She didn't think I was serious. After 6 weeks of fearing for my life and not eating, I had had enough and made the report. Even that day the narc had the opportunity to stop the threats of her family taking care of me. She did not. By the way, I did forget to mention that the worst of her threats were on a very special day. My birthday. Getting back to the final encounter at my business, she then tells me I had to apologize for what I did first and then she would apologize. She then struts out of my business thinking herself victorious. Well, her problem was I had already been learning about covert narcissism and I was spotting the lying in real time. Yes, her crazy eyes were steady as she blurted out one lie after another, but I looked straight into her eyes and her upper eyelid began twitching. She knew that I knew but thought she wasn't letting on. So what was actually going on in that last meeting other than the obvious? The cold-hearted creature was there to run interference for her new beau, but the important thing was her demeanor. She came in calm, cool and collected, and she was channeling the new boyfriend who had helped her stay calm and cool and subdue her rage in the face of the terrible situation with her evil ex-boyfriend, yours truly. Yes, the narc was now mirroring someone new and was a different person altogether than the one who was my partner. That new creature staring right into my eyes had no soul. She literally channeled that narcissistic sack of filth boyfriend of hers as she proudly lied, gaslit me, and literally every word out of her mouth was a lie meant to bury me alive. Lying, duplicity, treachery, aggressive vengeful hatred were now virtues to this beast that had once espoused all of my positive traits as her worldview and way of life also. Yes, my partner once believed honesty, humility, hard work, kindness to others, selflessness, tolerance, a belief in God and being faithful and loyal to her partner for a lifetime as the correct path. This demon in front of me bore no resemblance whatsoever to the previous love of my life. Yes, they shared the same physical body, but my ex was nowhere to be seen inside that Jezebel. The weasel boyfriend had saved her and told her he would take care of her problem, namely me. Yes, she was all saturated and filled with the new supply from a new boyfriend, and she and he were one. That narc weasel was living inside of her and she treated me like a total stranger with a coldness of spirit that chilled me to the bone. That narcissist truly had no soul, and I could hardly believe that I hadn't noticed that throughout our years together. But that was another persona, another mask. This person in front of me was someone else altogether. The cycle, the Karpman triangle, had been fully completed, with me now being firmly in the role of the evil perpetrator and someone else installed as the savior. She once again took her favorite position of the victim. But let's not downplay the narcissist's versatility. Yes, she had seamlessly played every one of the positions in that Karpman triangle. She walked through my door in June of 2013 doe-eyed and at the end of her rope, seeking employment. A broken woman. She rapidly told me about a terrible ex she had ended the relationship with but was still in close contact with, and slowly she convinced me that I was the perfect man for her. The man she had been looking for all of her life. Yes, she was a victim of terrible abuse with a former partner who drank all of the time and was always drunk. She had been abused and likened her previous relationship to the Julia Roberts movie Sleeping with the Enemy, where the partner came home and everything had to be perfectly organized and clean or she would be berated. But the descriptions of her partner when asked didn't line up with the statements of abuse, and I didn't buy into it all and never took the bait by calling that ex evil. Did I know of the Karpman triangle? No. But in retrospect, this is exactly what I was dealing with. So fast forward to our last day, and the narc who started off as a victim when she walked in my door that first day walked out as the obvious perpetrator that last day. That last day I had been placed into the role of her ex-partner, and goodness knows what stories she fabricated about me, and the narc weasel was now the savior. Full circle. In actuality I was the victim, and both the narc and her weasel savior were the true perpetrators. Of course, the narc had gradually taken that position of perpetrator for at least the 2 previous years of our relationship. However, in her mind, even while being the perpetrator in our relationship, it is clear to me that she believed herself to be the victim and correspondingly portrayed herself as the victim and me as the perpetrator to the outside world. Yes, she started off the victim, making me the savior and her previous partner the perpetrator. To summarize, in that second stage she made me the perpetrator and herself the victim to the outside world, while simultaneously behind closed doors she was the actual perpetrator. In the final act of this Karpman drama triangle, she had retained victim status, made the narcissist weasel the new savior, and retained me as the perpetrator. The narc weasel boyfriend complied with her wishes and aided in my demonization and punishment. Karpman triangle completed. 1 Narcissist, 3 roles. Her role is always of the victim publicly, while behind closed doors she is the actual perpetrator. The previous savior then becomes the perpetrator in her public discourse away from him when she no longer has any use for him and is shopping for a new savior. Yes, an evil perpetrator is always required, and the more evil she can make him, the greater the contrast she can create as she idealizes her new savior. This cycle continues throughout the narcissist's life. The trail of broken lives left behind boggles the mind. But the narcissist is always in control of that triangle, always making sure they act out the role that serves their best interest at the moment. Does the narc ever think of themselves as a savior? Yes, when they love bomb and idealize someone and build that person up. Like a calf being fattened for the slaughter. But ultimately the cornerstone of the narc's existence, in their mind at least, is the role of victim. How strange that the narc can't see the irony. For the most part, the only victims in the narc's world are those around them, and the only perpetrator in their world is the narc themselves. Thank you for watching. Comments are welcomed. Peace be with you.